am Dr. Pavitra Bharadwaj. I work as an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science, Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. So friends, in this series of our lectures, we are talking about the style sheets and how the style sheets can be used to, enhance the look and the behavior of the HTML pages. So we had seen in the last lecture that how we can use the CSS styling in the text formatting and how we can enhance the font tag and how we can enhance the way the font tag appears and behaves on the HTML page. Now when we actually look at the styling elements, or when we actually look at the behavior of the various tags, so it's an important observation that tags, HTML tags, they can be positioned on a web page as a block or as an inline content. So we have two types of HTML tags or two type of HTML elements. They can be called as the block elements and they can be called as an inline element. Now what is a block element basically? A block element will appear as a block, that is, it will start and it will end with a new line, right? So for example, you have the P tag. So whenever you insert the paragraph tag or the P tag, so then the new paragraph will always begin with a new line, right? It will always begin with a new line, okay? So block elements, they will contain the content, they can have some content and they can have other block elements and they can have inline elements, right? So like for example, you have a paragraph tag. Within one paragraph tag you can specify or you can define more paragraph tags also, or you can define images. Now what is an image? Image is basically an inline element, or say for example anchor tag or the A tag, that is also an inline tag. What is an inline tag? Which is displayed without any line break, that is, it will be displayed on the same line in which the other content is appearing. So any inline content, it will always appear within a block element. Now why do we say this? Because our HTML tag itself is a block element. The body tag, the head tag, all these are block elements. So any HTML page that you are making, it will begin with the block level element, and within the block level element you will always have some inline elements, right? So likewise, we have another inline element which is called the span. There is a tag called the span tag, and span tag is also used to group various inline elements. For example, you want to just style one word within a line of text, okay? Within a paragraph you just want to format one or two words. Then what will you use? You will use it as an inline style and you will use the span tag to group those words. For example, you want one particular word to appear in red color. Say the word caution should appear in red color. So you will use span style color colon red. So you will define the color for one word to come as red using the span tag. So span tag is one very important example of an inline, because it is going to control the behavior of the particular tag and for only a few one or two or maybe a group of elements, right? We had also said that the image tag is also an inline tag, right? Because whenever you put an image, it will appear in the same line wherever you are putting. It will not go to the next line. If you remember, you always have to format the image. If you want it to go to the next line, you have to either give a break or you have to give a paragraph tag. Okay, so image may have its natural height and width properties, but it still will appear on the same line. It will not go to the next line. So one very important rule of thumb which you can use to distinguish between inline and block elements is that block elements, they will begin on a new line, whereas inline elements, they will begin in the same line as your text is appearing, right? So you can see in this example also, we are having a block level element, that is the P element, and within the P element we are having an anchor element which is an inline element. So if you will look at the page on the browser, you will understand that this anchor, the link portion or the hyperlink will appear in the same line. It will not go into the next line. So therefore we say that the anchor tag is an inline tag, whereas the P tag is a block level tag. Now, if you look at block level tags, how do they work? If you look at the document flow, so one block level tag, then another, then another. So, they will not come, they are not coming within each other, they are coming one below the other. So, when a new block level element is defined, it begins from a new line, then another, then another. So, they are beginning in a new line. Whereas, if you look at the document flow, if in inline elements, so of course, we said that an inline element will always be contained in a block element. So, all these inline elements that we have defined, whether it is a text element or it is an anchor element, they are all a part of a block element, that is P, but they are coming side by side, they are not going into the next line. So, this is how the document will flow when you have inline elements, right. If you look at a larger example where we have both multiple block and multiple inline, then you can see that you have one block in which you have few inline elements, then you begin another block. Likewise, you can define multiple blocks, and in each block you will have multiple inline elements. So, this is how the layout of the document is created, right. It is also very important that when we will be creating more complicated layouts of web pages, so this kind of a structure of separating the inline and the block level elements is going to be very important. Then when we were talking about HTML attributes and HTML tags, we had been commonly using one attribute called the ID attribute. So, we were using two attributes basically, like we had said, form name and form ID, right, table name and table ID, paragraph name and paragraph ID. So, this ID attribute is also very important, because when you define the ID attribute, you are giving a unique ID for that particular tag on the page. So, if you are defining, say, for a particular paragraph, you are defining the ID, okay, as mission. So, you cannot use the same ID for another tag on the same page. So, therefore, ID has to be unique and it can only be used once on the page. So, you can see here we are defining one paragraph and we are calling it an ID, we are giving it an ID, okay, and then we are closing that particular paragraph, okay. Now, what is the purpose of giving this ID? One purpose, of course, is for when we want to create links on the same page, okay. So, you can use this ID with a hash tag. So, when you use the ID with the hashtag, it can be used to reference different sections on the same page, like for internal linking what we had discussed. So, ID can also be used for that, like in place of name you can use the ID attribute with a hash, okay. And also when we will be creating classes for style sheets, then also this ID attribute will be used. So, browser, when you are using internal linking, the browser will link the particular point where the ID has been defined, and browser will load that page and scroll to element with a given ID, okay. Now, later on we also see that IDs can be used as selectors for CSS, okay. Now, what do we mean for a CSS ID selectors? We are saying that you are using a particular ID and you are defining the style for that particular ID, okay. Now, that paragraph, whichever is inheriting that ID, say for example, we create a definition called hash mission, okay, in which we define some style, say for example, we give font style, we give a font family, etc., okay, and then we have a paragraph which is called mission. So, we say PID is equal to mission. So, that paragraph will will inherit all the style which has been defined in this particular ID, okay. So, the style which will be inherited, that will be only for that particular paragraph, because we already said that ID can be used only once in a web page. So, if you are defining an ID for a particular paragraph, so then whatever class or whatever CSS you have defined for that ID, that will be used for that particular object or that particular tag instance only. So, what is the what should be done, or what is the way out, because you cannot define the styles for each ID separately. So instead of this, HTML provides us with a class attribute. So what we can do is that we can create a class of objects, and that class, any object can belong to that particular class. So what are we doing? We are looking at a way to group elements and give a style to only that group. So unless unlike when you have ID, class can be reused as much as one wants to. So you define the class, say for example you define P class is equal to, you define 3 different classes. Okay, so you have 3 paragraphs which belong to 3 different classes, and in your style definition we give the style definition for each of the class. So how do you use that? You will define the class using a period. So you will write dot special. So this means that special is the name of a class, right? And now this special, you are defining that the background color is yellow, font weight is bold. Now this special class that you have created, it can be having objects like paragraph type, it can have object of font type, it can have object of table type, any type of object can belong to the special class. And when you create a object of the special class, automatically its background color will become yellow and its font weight will become bold. Likewise here we are defining one class for the paragraph only. So we are writing P dot shout. So here we are defining that there is a class where the color will be red and the font family will be cursive. So whatever you define in the shout class, that will be inherited by the object. Like for example here we are using P class is equal to shout. So definitely this text will come in red color and in the bold, right. So this is how the text is going to appear. So wherever you can see the highlight, it means the class definition has the highlight. So it belongs to the shout class, okay. It belongs to the special class, sorry, it belongs to the special class, and the rest of it belongs to the shout class, which is not selected. So this way we can define class identifiers. We had talked about how our link behavior can be controlled. So that also we can use. We had talked about something called a pseudo class. Pseudo class, because these classes are not defined by the user, but these are defined by the system. So we say that this particular link belongs to the class link, this particular link belongs to the class visited, and the third belongs to the class hover, okay. So you define the behaviors and then you can use. So we can have different kinds of class identifiers, okay. In CSS we can have different kinds of selectors, like for example you have active, okay, you have focus, that is when an element which will which has the keyboard focus. So this can be these are basically events for which you are defining the selector. Hover means when the mouse is over an element, okay. Link means that has not been visited. Visited link means a link which has been visited. Then you can also have first letter, that is the first letter of the text inside an element will be of a particular color, or first line will be of a particular color, or first child of that element, in hierarchy that element will be the first one to appear inside another element. So different class selectors can be specified for the different elements in the CSS. Then we also see that pages, we need to have sections in the pages, okay. So why we create these pages, or we create sections within the pages? So that it becomes easier to style the individual elements. So we will create groups of elements, we will create sections of text, okay, of the page, and therefore we can create very complex page layouts if you can clearly define the sections on a particular page, right. So for creating sections on a particular page, the tag which is used is the div tag, okay. Div stands for division, and in each division we can further, the division can be an object of a particular class, okay. So you use the div tag to indicate a logical section or area of a page, right. So it has no appearance by default. So when you define the div tag, it's actually no line or nothing, no effect will be there, but you can apply styles to that particular division that you have defined. Like in the previous example, we had created a class called shout, okay, and if you ask one of your division, you create a division which belongs to the class shout, right. So whatever behavior you had created for the class shout, that will be taken by this particular division. So this particular division means this particular section of your page will have that kind of attributes which you have defined for that class, okay. So within one division you can have multiple classes also, right. For example, in this case we have division class is equal to shout, okay. So this means that the text we want should be in red color, because in the shout we had defined the font color to be red. Then further in this division I have created a paragraph where I say class is equal to special. So this means whatever attributes belong to the special class will be incorporated or will be inherited by this. But what is happening, that since I am using this div class, so automatically the font color will be taken from the class to which the division belongs. So likewise, we can create more divisions. As you would know that there are divisions called the head divisions and there are navigation divisions, okay. So you have got multiple divisions. When you create a complex page layout, then this division is very important, because whatever formatting or whatever tag elements you will give to to the entire division will automatically apply to all the sub tags which are coming into that division, okay. Likewise, we had also discussed the inline attribute called span, inline tag called the span. Again, span is also something like division. It will not have any on screen appearance, but you can add it in the inline fonts, okay. For the inline elements means, like for example, if you want to control one word's appearance, then you can use the span, okay. So after we see that how CSS rules can be applied and how you can create a entire layout of your page using the span, using the div tags and using class and using ID attributes, it's important to look at the entire model of the CSS, that is how every element is composed of. Say for example, if you have one paragraph, okay, paragraph is one element. Now this element actually it is like a box. So we say that there is a box model in CSS that we talk about. So box means that you have some content, say for example it is some text or it is a paragraph or it is a table, whatever, that is your content, and there is a border around that element. See, sometimes you can see that element's border and by default it is not shown. So this box element you can you can control the each of the elements, each of the parts of the box, okay, using the CSS, okay. So you have the content and then you have the border. Then between the border and the content you have some space. This space is known as the padding. So padding is the space between the content and the border, and then you have a margin. Margin is the space between the border and the other content. Okay, so we can easily define the borders, like we will see how many different types of borders can be defined, the different thickness or weight of the border can be defined. You can control the space between the content and the border using the padding, and you can control the space between one border and another border using the margin, okay. So all these four attributes we will see, all these four values we will see, and how they can be used to make very impressive and emphatic websites, okay. Say for example you have the width, okay. So you have the property of the width. So what is width? It is content width plus the left right padding width plus the left right border width plus the left right margin. So that is the entire width of that particular tag. Likewise, height will also be the content height, the padding height, the border height and the margin height, okay. So of course, you know, older versions of Internet Explorer and some of the older browsers do not support this box model. So whatever attributes or whatever properties we will specify may not appear properly, but most of the latest browsers, they support this. Okay. Say for example, now how you can, you know, define these properties. So you have the property border. First is the property border. So in border you can define the thickness of the border, that is in pixels you can define it, in points you can define it. Okay, you can define it in m, as already discussed, m means the width of the letter m in the font which is chosen. Okay, then you can also define as thin, thick or medium border. Okay, so you can, you know, control the thickness of the border. Then you can have a style for your border, that is you want no border, or you want a hidden border, or you want a dotted or a dashed or a double border. You can also control, you know, you can also have the groove, that is it should be inset, outset, or it should be a ridge kind of border, or it should be a solid border, and you can always have a color to the border. So you can define 4 properties for the border: thickness, style, groove and color. Okay. So thickness, say for example you define 5 pixels, okay, you define the style as solid, you define the color as red. So out of these 4 properties you may choose to define all 4, or you can define whichever you like. Okay, not all are mandatory, right. So this way you can define the border for any attribute. Like for example, for H2 if you are defining, so wherever you will use H2, automatically a border will come around that text, which will be red colored solid border of 5 pixel thickness, right. Then you can also have other properties which, you know, you can define, that is the border color and border width, okay, which are the specific properties of border on all 4 sides. Okay, border style, then border bottom, border left, border right, border top, right. So for a particular border also you can have that. So for left, if you want the left right border to be of a different thickness or of a different color, that also you can give. So you can control the borders, all 4 borders, or you can control one particular border, either left, right, top or bottom border. Okay. So this way, you know, you have so many properties for border itself that you can, you know, use. A list of properties is available on the W3C website. So you can, you know, see a large number of properties can be given. So you can not just set the full border, but you can set each side of the border individually. So all 4 sides can be of different thickness, different style and different colors. Okay. Then the next is for the padding, right. Padding means that is the space between the content and the border. Okay, how much content and the border space you want. So you can have the same padding on all 4 sides. Okay, so that you specify using padding, and you give a you know, a space, like using a pixel you can give the space, or m you can give the space. Then you can also have different paddings for different sides, like you can have you know, padding on the bottom, you can have padding on the left, right or top separately, right. So you can control overall padding, or you can control padding at the specific end also, right. For example, here you see in the first paragraph we are showing a padding of 20 pixel. So there is a space around this, okay, and we are giving a border of 3 pixel which is solid. Okay. In the second example where we are using a padding of 0 pixel and a background color of yellow. So you can see that no space is left between the border and the content, because the padding has been specified to 0 pixels. So you can give padding this way, and you can also control the appearance of the padding, like top bottom, you know, left and right padding can also be set individually. Okay. So padding will always share the background color. So there will be no you know, different color will not be there. Whatever is the background color that you are setting for your content, the same color will be taken by the padding. Okay. Then we have the margins. You know, in the box model you have content, then you have the padding, then you have the border, and then you have the margin. So again for margin also, like padding, you can have the same margin on all four sides, or you can set the margin differently for different sides. That is, you can have a margin for bottom, you can have a margin for left, right, top separately also. Okay, so you can control the appearance of the margin also, and we always know that margins are transparent. So you don't see, there is nothing written in the margin, but you can set the margin individually or as a group, right. Then we can always have the height and width, that is the dimension properties can also be set, that is how wide or tall you want to make the element. Now this is only applicable for block level elements, because they always have a block or they always follow the box model, right. So if you want that your H2 will be of a particular height and width, or your H1 will be of a particular height and width, so that you can specify using the properties width and height, and you can also specify the max width and max height, that is the maximum size of that particular element and the minimum size of that particular element using min width and min height. So you can control the appearance of the particular block level element in the terms of its dimensions, that is height and width also, right. Then if you want to center a block level element, that is you want to give it auto margins, okay. So if you set the width, then you can center the element, otherwise you will use it using the inline elements within a block, okay. So you will use the text align is equal to center in that case, okay. So centering the block element is also very important. Then you can always give the background color and a background image. So background color, we have already discussed the different ways in which color can be specified, for different content, for padding or for border areas, you margins, they are transparent, okay, and you can always give a background image using a URL. So the property is background image. So friends, this brings us to the end of today's lecture. We will be continuing with more interesting front end tools in the forthcoming lecture. Till then, please keep watching CEC. Thank you.